What's going on, everybody? It is Pushing the Limits. Welcome on a Thursday, a very busy, well, I should say another very busy news day, but it feels like every day is a busy news day, right? On Capitol Hill today, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being questioned. We'll certainly be covering that. And on this day, TMZ has a story up in the New York Post that apparently he cut off the penis of a roadkill raccoon. Yes, I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very bizarre story, extremely weird. Be talking. I didn't think, by the way, it wasn't on my bingo card today. I didn't think we'd be talking about raccoon penis today, but thanks to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who also sawed off the head of a whale, staged a bear murder in Central Park. This is the guy that's in charge of human and health. It's insane. So we certainly will be covering that. We're also going to be covering Pete Hegseth, who also held a press conference earlier today and misquoted some scripture and made some excuses more for this war in Iran. But before we get to all that stuff, anybody who knows me personally knows I like a good debate. So I went to Phoenix a few times, actually, in the last couple months, but I went last month to Phoenix to address some Turning Point people, do some debates with Destiny. And one of the debates I didn't expect it to, but sometimes my debates do get heated and entertaining, for lack of a better term. I met a young man by the name of Carson Carpenter from Turning Point USA. This debate that I had with him several weeks ago has gone viral. Here's a little tidbit of it if you haven't already seen it.
You said you would denounce anyone that would like flip off Charlie Kirk, for example, because of the way that he died. Denounce the person that you surround yourself with that did that. Watch the video. Do it on public, please, Brian, right now in front of a live audience. Sure. Please denounce that.
Sure.
Denounce that act.
Sure. So I did that today, actually, when I was talking to Jack Posobiec.
Let's do it again. They asked Donald Trump to denounce things multiple times. You can do it if you stand on it.
I don't think flipping off a picture of Charlie Kirk gets anybody anywhere.
That says 1993 to 2025 on it.
Yeah, I just answered you.
Yeah.
Unlike you, who will not denounce, by the way, different standards from different people.
I was just giving context to the audience.
Now I'm going to give some context. Different standards for different people. You're taking someone in an organization because you don't like they flipped off a poster, but yet you weren't willing to immediately denounce the president of the United States who said he was happy somebody died. There you go. That's just a little tidbit of that debate. I think it was like 30 minutes or so, and it did pretty well on social media. That young man who I got into that heated debate with, his name is Carson Carpenter, Turning Point USA, and he's joining me right now. I guess you could call it round number 2. Carson, thanks for coming on with us, man. How are you?
Doing great, man. How about yourself? It's great to see my favorite Shapiro.
Oh, okay. So you're not a fan of Ben Shapiro. I did not know that.
No, sir. No, sir.
Why? Before we get to like the real debate stuff, like I would think someone at Turning Point would be a fan of Ben Shapiro. I'm actually surprised to hear you say that. Why do you not like Ben Shapiro?
Well, I'll clear things up. I'm not with Turning Point, actually. I did work with Turning Point in the past, but, currently own my own company now. But I would just have to say Ben is just, he's very unlikable, one, right? I mean, when you listen to his voice, it's like nails to a chalkboard, honestly. And two, a lot of his points are just very mute. A lot of them are just very piggybacking off of other people, what they say, like Jack Posobiec, like DC Drano, and all these other Twitter personalities. And then he just provides a little bit of emphasis on it. So that's why I'm not a big fan of Ben.
I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me there. That's for sure. I think Ben's a little weasel. So we'll definitely agree on that. All right. So you being a Trump supporter, I want to question you, for lack of a better term, on what's going on today, right? Because I really didn't get into this with you too much when we debated several weeks ago with this war in Iran. Are you for this war? I guess that would be my first question.
Yeah, I'm definitely not for the war in Iran. I think, we could agree on that, frontal point. I think how it was done was just very not in the correct way, right? It was a preemptive strike done with another ally of ours. And then you've seen NATO not show any support to our country for this conflict. And I believe that's because, truly NATO thinks it was wrong. It wasn't the right course of action. And I would have to agree with them in this case. It's not like Venezuela. You're taking down a theocratic regime. And, ultimately the goal has been regime change. It wasn't to destroy the nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, so obviously I agree with you, but I guess my point is, and I think you're aware of this, Trump said he was going to be a peace president God knows how many times. He said that he would not get us into any new wars. There would be no regime changes. All this stuff he said leading up to this. Was he just lying? I mean, what do you make of those promises?
I believe what Trump has really done is just trying to leverage foreign policy because of his inaction with domestic policy a lot of times. We saw that in the first term, right? After a year and a half in, he wasn't getting much done, was getting blocked by Congress, was having a lot of this stuff thrown his way. And then you saw him start leveraging foreign policy. You saw with the Chinese trade deal, you saw with the North Korea meeting on the Korean border there, trying to leverage foreign policy for domestic support. And then now you're seeing in Iran, he's trying to say, well, we have to destroy this evil regime. But then a lot of people back home are hurting because of gas prices, unaffordability, stuff like that. So I think for me personally, a lot of his domestic issues, I still like the way that he's conveying them. It's just he's leveraging foreign policy too much. And I've been asked a lot of times, well, would you still vote for Trump again? I would still vote for Trump again because foreign policy plays a very little impact into where my vote's going. I think most people don't really play foreign policy into their vote, right? That's not on the ballot. So that's what I'd have to say with Trump right now with the war.
Obviously, the economy is a top issue for everybody. Obviously, his foreign policy is directly, as you pointed out, impacted the American economy. You look at not only gas prices, which have skyrocketed and got up 50% here just in the last month, but you also look at inflation, where he said everything he was going to bring down on day one. You know that's not true. There's eggs and only a few vegetables are actually down from where it was the day Donald Trump took office. So he hasn't done that. He said that he was going to end the war in 24 hours in Ukraine. As you know, he hasn't done that. He hasn't made prescription drugs lower like he claimed that he was. And there's so many different parameters, for lack of a better term, where he hasn't done what he said he was going to do to help the American people. As you know, he's given the biggest tax breaks for the top 1%, $100 billion. So I'm just trying to understand, like, from your standpoint, what has he accomplished? And I'm happy to talk immigration with you too, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you'd say, well, I like his immigration policy. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you about why I disagree with how he's going about it. But, like, what has he done where you could say, man, that's my president, I'm glad he's doing that?
I would have to say in regards to immigration, let me answer that first. I think we need to deport more people, honestly. I think there's been too much theatrics with ICE, with how it has been carried out with a lot of these major cities, right? Obviously targeting certain major cities like Memphis and Detroit and Minneapolis, Seattle, all of these types of cities, but there's a lot of other places in the country that should have been targeted as well, but they should have been done in a more ethical way, right? I think we could all agree with that. Because his goal was to deport everybody that came in under the President Biden, right? So I would have to say, he is trying to keep his promise there. It was just done in a different way. And I think that's what we've seen with a lot of his promises. Now, yes, there has been promises that have been abandoned, unlike his first term, where in 2020, he was running promises made, promises kept. But a lot of times now you've seen with the war in Iran, not starting new wars, you're preemptive striking a country that is starting a new conflict. So what I would have to say where I support Trump on is obviously his want for immigration policy, his want for creating economic ties across the rest of the world that advantage the United States over other countries, like tariffs. I think that blanket tariff was actually a good thing. I think Liberation Day was an amazing thing. And the only reason why the Supreme Court turned that down and gave it up to Congress was because they knew Congress was going to be so inactive and never actually approve any of that, just like how they do with a plethora of other things. They throw it off to Congress, congressional approval, like war, among other things, and they know it makes a roadblock and barrier way heavier. So I would have to say, tariffs, the economy is still relatively doing well. I know you said prices didn't come down. They have came down in other areas and other aspects, believe it or not, domestically, from the end of Biden's term. Now, compared to Trump's first term, of course they haven't, right? Because that was 5 or 6 years ago by this point. So those were kind of the main things I'd have to say with Trump that I'm relatively happy with.
Let's go one by one with that. You mentioned tariffs. He took $175 billion from the American people. He promised us all that would be getting tariff checks. Now they've said we're not getting those checks. and you're just going to have to sue us. I mean, that's what they're basically saying. We're not getting that money back. As you know, the American consumer is the one that suffers has to pay for it. Why is that a good thing for the American people?
Well, I think it's also wrong that our country system is set up where a president can start carrying out executive orders that have financial repercussions. And then you have to go back and like financially audit the money that was already carried out by that executive action. Doesn't that seem very counterproductive? Like, why would we do it that way? That's like giving out hundreds of millions of dollars to illegal immigrants, and then they go spend that money in wrong places. And then you try to get it and audit it back. Like, that makes no sense. Maybe don't give them money to the illegal immigrants. Maybe don't give the money to the president to be able to carry out these actions without Supreme Court, at least authority or repercussions of it. If there's an executive order, that should go directly to the Supreme Court immediately. And why don't we have that as a nation, right? That would do good for any president. It would have done great for Biden. It would have helped the American people so much. So that's what I'd have to say to that. You know, there's no point that I could argue, oh, were those tariffs actually, you know, constitutional or whatever else, because we had the Supreme Court decision. But there should be a better process in place for presidents to carry out these actions.
I just look at the unemployment rate. When Joe Biden left office, it was somewhere around 4.1%. It's hovered between 4.4 and 4.8% in the last year and a half. Private sector job growth has been abysmal. It's been terrible. We keep hearing from Bessent and others. Give it another 6 months. We heard from 90 deals in 90 days from Navarro a year ago. I think today that was a joke. That didn't happen. We keep hearing these promises. It's been a year and a half into his administration, and I think it's time to. I'm not saying you're doing this, but I think it's time to stop blaming Joe Biden and his policies. What has he shown? Unemployment rate, private sector job growth, inflation. And once in a while they'll go to the GDP and we'll talk about those statistics. And then Pam Bondi, when she's supposed to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein, she's talking about stocks. I just listen. And not only that, I didn't even bring up the Epstein stuff, right? I mean, the Epstein stuff, even by most MAGA Republican standards, they're extremely disappointed with that. You've got Kristi Noem that was let go. You mentioned unethical is one way to point it out with ICE and the way they've handled things. I thought he only hired the best people. I mean, he said that in the past. Clearly, that's not the case. And then you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today, testifying on Capitol Hill. It just, I don't know, man. If this is hiring the best people, I don't know. But I want to ask you an ethical question in regards to the war in Iran, which I think we both agree on. He's had a UFC fight over the weekend with Marco Rubio when J.D. Vance is over there trying to negotiate with these people. He's watching a UFC fight. If Joe Biden or Barack Obama was doing that, I think everybody would have a problem with that, and I would as well. What do you make of that?
Well, I think also a lot of people would have a problem if, Barack Obama said praise be to Allah on Easter, right? I mean, right. Yep. I think a lot of people wouldn't find that very funny. And that's what we've seen, the hypocrisy a lot with the older generation and the right is, oh, okay, he can abandon these promises because of new turbulent times. Well, there's historical data that shows this isn't necessarily a new conflict either. So I would have to disagree a lot with the boomer rights for a majority of things. But what I would have to say as well is, Brian, where do you think this next generation of young Democrats is going, right? Because yes, there is a hole in the Republican Party that should be filled in the next 3 to 4 years because Trump is going to be a sitting duck president after this next midterm, everything like that happening. How do you actually convey younger men like myself that tend to be more masculine, that tend to not like degenerate policies, that tend to actually support common sense economic growth? How do Democrat candidates angle themselves towards that instead of just, okay, we should give free amnesty to illegals. We should peddle to transgender people. We should actually let unlimited freedom, no matter the repercussions to other people. How do they actually change that?
My first thing, if you're talking about masculinity, my first comment to young men would be, do you think masculinity is the guy waking up, putting on 8 layers of orange makeup and 5 hair transplants and fake teeth and a fake tan who dodged the military 5 times? I would say that's the opposite of masculinity. You know what masculinity is? Somebody like Pete Buttigieg who served the country. And I know there's some despicable people on the right that are going to mock him for his sexuality. That's masculinity. When you're willing to risk your life for this country, the opposite of Donald Trump. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing
I think there's people on the left that would mock Pete Buttigieg. I mean,
who?
You know, Nick Fuentes said to go vote Democrat in 2028.
Nick Fuentes is not a Democrat. He's a Nazi. Give me somebody on the left that's a prominent figure that would ever mock Pete Buttigieg for being gay.
I don't know. Do you think Nick Fuentes is typically conservative? Like, is he a staunch conservative?
Yeah, whether he's a conservative or he's a Nazi. He's a Holocaust denier. He's got zero credibility. That's why I almost never talk about him, because he's an awful human being and he's just there for clicks, just like Candace Owens or even Ben Shapiro. I'm not saying Ben Shapiro's at that level of craziness, but
I don't think he'd be a Nazi either, because
no, but I also believe that if Benjamin Netanyahu bombed every country in the world, Ben Shapiro would find a way to defend it. But you mentioned the word masculinity. Donald Trump is the opposite of masculinity. Donald Trump has only fought for himself. He dodged the military, and the guy puts on 8 layers of makeup. So if you're going to talk about masculinity to all these younger people in this country, I would say masculinity are people like General Kelly and others that have served this country, that are good, decent human beings that don't treat women like garbage. Now, you mentioned
like Eric Swalwell.
Eric Swalwell's a horrible person, but here's the difference. And by the way, I called out for him to resign. He's a scumbag. But that is the difference between a lot of Democrats and Republicans, in my opinion, today. Many Democrats came forward immediately and said, you need to step down. This is awful behavior. Look at the Republican Party and look at who they still support. I'm sorry, including you. You still.
No, I think that's misguided. I think a lot of the older generation on both sides would defend their party leader till the very end. We saw it with Joe Biden, right? We saw that
Joe Biden's
most of the Democrat.
Joe Biden's not a liable sexual abuser. You just mentioned Eric Swalwell, and I'm using that as a specific example. He stepped down within a couple days, and some of the top Democrats in office called for his resignation. Let's be honest, he wasn't the president, but Eric Swalwell was a pretty popular Democrat, and yet you still had all these Democrats. And by the way, I came on the air immediately and said he needed to step down immediately. You know why? Because
how many years of scandal has Eric Swalwell been under? It's been 5 or 6 years since the Chinese spy case where he was using her for sexual favors came out, right?
Okay, so
and there were people defending him and not believing the accusers. Yet, you know, Ruben Gallego's like, I believe the accuser now. It's like 5 or 6 years ago they didn't believe the accusers.
So 5 or 6 years ago, my understanding, he was never accused of sexual abuse, or rape. Number 2, that case
espionage.
but that was never proven. That was never proven. And I would also say, when you make an allegation which still have not been proven to this day, here's what we know for sure. Okay. What we know for sure is that he was hanging out with women and paying them for sex. How do we know this? Because there's videos of it. So
but how come there wasn't a prolonged investigation into Eric Swalwell back then? How did they not find any of this info along the way, right? Shouldn't he have been under constant investigation? Like that yacht video was from 2022, 2023. The video of him in the hotel room was 2023, 2024. How come the ethics committee didn't have that come out way sooner? He got to serve in Congress an extra 2 years and vote on bills for our country that long because of inaction, because of the ethics committee.
He was investigated. Those videos that were just released in the last week, to my knowledge, have never been released before. These women that have recently come forward, to my knowledge, have not come forward before. The point that I was trying to make, and I still stand by this, is that as soon as I saw those videos, and as soon as there was any real evidence that came forward of misconduct, forget about even possible criminal charges, which they haven't been filed yet, if they are, he's a scumbag. Listen, 90% of your party, you're a Republican, 90% of your party still support the guy who's in the Epstein files 30,000 times, the guy who was found liable for sexual abuse, the guy who was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, whose own ex-wife accused him of rape. I called out Eric Swalwell immediately. I would never support Eric Swalwell ever again. He should never be allowed to run for office. You guys still support Donald Trump. Don't you find that hypocrisy at its finest?
Well, Bill Clinton is still a huge player in the Democratic Party. And even back then.
Stop.
There wasn't the condemning of Bill Clinton as well.
Stop. First of all, Bill Clinton hasn't been in office in decades. He's not a lawmaker. He's no longer in office, and I didn't even vote.
So he doesn't have the same influence. He couldn't have the same influence on
lawmaker.
other people.
He's not a lawmaker. What are you talking about influence? He's not an elected official. He's not a lawmaker. I don't know
in an official capacity.
Well, yeah, he's not a lawmaker. You're comparing a guy who used to be president, who's no longer a lawmaker, who's playing golf every day, to the president of the United States, who's the leader of your party. Bill Clinton is the leader of the Democrat Party.
So do you think J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, any of these other people that associate with Trump, they're not guilty by association? They're completely separate. They're 100% okay. Like, that's okay to work in that capacity with Trump, even though you think he's a sexual abuser, all of this other stuff. You wouldn't hold that against them, Brian?
I think here's what I do hold against them, and pretty much anybody who is in the Trump administration. They enable him. They know he's a horrible human being, and they have no backbone. That's what I would say to people that work in the Trump administration, and to anybody like you or anybody who is out and aggressive talking about Eric Swalwell. Where the hell have you been every day when all the first of all, it's not just accusations. He was found liable in court. Okay. It's not just about, 25 women that have come forward and claiming that he raped them or abused them. It's the E. Jean Carroll stuff. It's his ex-wife in a deposition. And it's the fact that he doesn't want to talk about the Epstein files. There's still 3 million files that haven't been released. And Todd Blanche, his former personal attorney, has said time and time again, no more investigations. We've released everything we're going to release. Democrats have come forward and said that Eric Swalwell should step down. Some of the biggest names have said that. And guess what he did? He did step down. But, do
you think if Eric Swalwell was more influential and actually had more power over these people, like to a level of Bill Clinton, that they would come out and say that publicly as well? I just don't think so. I think that would be misguided. I don't think they would.
Okay, well, that's a hypothetical. I'm telling you what they did do, and I'm telling you what the Republican Party right now is not doing.
Well, we can't compare apples and oranges. We have to compare oranges and oranges because we're talking about Donald Trump.
I agree. We're talking about Eric Swalwell and Donald Trump. Eric Swalwell was in office a week ago. He's no longer in office. Donald Trump is not only still in office, but 90% of the Republican Party still support him. Donald Trump is a liable sexual abuser who you still support. I mean, I can go on and on about him grabbing about women's genitals, bragging about that, cheating on every woman he's ever been with, raw dogging a porn star 2 weeks after Barron was born, and then paying her $130,000. It's apples to oranges as far as Eric Swalwell and his misconduct and Donald Trump. I don't know if Eric Swalwell is going to be criminally charged. If he is, then, and if there's evidence to prove it, I hope he's found guilty. I hope he goes to jail. Let me repeat once again. Eric Swalwell is a scumbag. He's a scumbag. Are you not willing to say the same about Donald Trump?
I mean, my real question is if you don't respect the president of the United States, do you respect the election results that happened in 2024 electing him, the people that did?
I'll answer that. The answer is yes. I don't respect a lot of the people that voted for him, but that's not what I just asked you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to call out Eric Swalwell is a scumbag. He's a bad guy. He should never be in public office ever again. With everything you know about Donald Trump, are you willing to agree with me and say the same thing about Donald Trump? It has nothing to do with respecting the presidency. I'm talking about the human being of Donald Trump. Are you willing to call Donald Trump a scumbag right now, as I've called out Eric Swalwell?
Well, like I said, we're comparing apples and oranges, right? If the situation were the same for Swalwell, none of those people would have came out against his character, right? I don't disagree with that. What if Ruben Gallego was trying to whip up votes in the Senate with President Swalwell?
But with respect, I'm asking you, Carson, right now. Forget about everybody else. This is you and me right now. I get what you're saying, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. I'm willing to call Eric Swalwell a scumbag. I'm sure you think he's a scumbag also. And you know what I would say to you? I'd say, you're right. He's a bad guy. Are you, forget about everybody else. Are you right now willing to be intellectually honest with me and say the same thing about Trump with his sexcapades and what we know about him? Are you willing to also call him a scumbag?
Well, the evidence isn't the same, truthfully. There wasn't a video of Donald Trump kissing a stripper in a hotel room on the bed and sexually abusing her. So, no, not with the evidence given. Absolutely not.
First of all, that wasn't considered sexual abuse. I just want to be clear on that. It's alleged
it was consensual.
Yeah, it's alleged that this was payments made to an escort. So let's just be factually accurate there. Number two, You don't think his name in the files 30,000 times and 25 women that have accused him of rape or sexual assault? You don't believe any of the women? Is that what you're saying?
Is that no? Is that the same type of evidence of seeing that act on video though? Like you can't ignore that the evidence is different. The reality of it.
Okay, the act on video is not sexual abuse. What we saw on video allegedly is a paid escort girl, which would be against the law. What I am trying to tell you is there have been 25 women that have accused Donald Trump of rape or sexual assault, including his ex-wife. Are you now meaning to tell me that you think all these women are lying?
No, that's not what I said,
Okay,
Brian.
good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so with that being said, I'm glad to hear you say that. With that being said, that you think that some of these allegations could be credible.
I mean, I respect women probably more than anybody.
I'm glad you do. Carson, I'm glad to hear you say that. And by the way, I believe you. So with that being said, to my question, are you willing to call Donald Trump the same as I called Eric Swalwell?
No, absolutely not. And I gave you the perfect reason for it. The evidence is different. The evidence of character is different, right? It's a primary source on video, seeing Eric Swalwell use and not abuse, I guess, an escort that it was in a hotel room,
so let's assume
most likely drunk or on alcohol or on drugs.
So let's assume that that's true, that he paid an escort girl. Okay, I'll give you that.
How about this, Brian? I'll give you this concession. If you can find me a video of Donald Trump doing something like that, showing that character on video, with a physical act being shown on video like that, then sure, I would absolutely admit that.
On video, he bragged about.
Yeah, because there was a hidden mic, but there was no physical altercation shown on video.
So you're telling me
he wasn't doing the act. He was talking about an act of how people treat him.
Okay, so because there's no video of Donald Trump with a woman, what would you say evidence-wise about his payment to Stormy Daniels of $130,000 when he had sex with her 2 weeks after Barron was born? Which, by the way, he didn't deny that. What would you say about that? Is that not any? Why did he pay her 130 grand?
I mean, Bill Gates was doing that type of stuff with Russian strippers.
You're not talking about Bill Gates. We're talking about Donald Trump. So my question is,
what I'm giving context of saying this happens a lot with billionaires. Okay, they pay off a lot of women for a lot of their acts.
Well, it happens a lot with middle-aged men that are married. They pay hookers as well. That doesn't make it right. So my question still stands. What would you make of Donald Trump? What's the difference? Eric Swalwell, we've seen in the video, paid a hooker to have sexual relations with her. Donald Trump paid a porn star $130,000 to spend the night with her. What is the difference, and why can't you call that out as well?
Well, then Eric Swalwell also grabbed, raped, choked, drugged other women as well, and that was a precursor with the video that was released to show his actual character in a very vulgar way to the public.
I've already said that Eric Swalwell is a scumbag, and if there's evidence to criminally charge him, I say go for it. Why won't you?
Is Eric Swalwell a rapist? Would you believe the accuser when she said that? Then you're not believing the accuser.
So you're not letting me answer. So I tend to believe most women when they say they are the victims of abuse or sexual assault. Obviously, with the Duke lacrosse case and others, there's always going to be exceptions. I've been very consistent on this. I feel bad for these women. I do believe they're probably telling the truth. And I believe if there's evidence to prove, I think there should be criminal charges. Why won't you hold Donald Trump to those same standards?
Well, you're just doing the same type of deflection that I was doing.
Not at all.
Brian.
I'm answering all of your questions. Wait, hold on. Have I not specifically addressed everything you've said? Not only have I called him a scumbag, not only have I just told you I tend to believe the women.
Well, cool. Calling him a scumbag. I mean, I'm sure a lot of politicians are scumbags, obviously, right? What does that do? What does that do?
Is Donald Trump a scumbag?
No.
He's not. Okay. He's not. Okay. So we're going to have to. Okay. Listen, I'm just trying to point out the double standard here because I think this is exactly.
I was pointing out the double standard. The one accuser said that he raped her, choked her, sexually abused her. Yep. And then we also see the backing of this video, how he paid an escort, how he was treating her very aggressively as well. There's a lot more evidence between those two things than there are in video of Donald Trump doing things.
Evidence. By the way, there's no video.
That's the only evidence that we can determine off of because we're not a court of law, Brian.
That he was found liable for sexual abuse in a court. He was found that he had raped E. Jean Carroll, according to the judge who characterized it in the case. His ex-wife in court documents.
Do you think blackmail is a thing, Brian, as well? Because Eric Swalwell wasn't a billionaire.
So if it's Donald Trump, that it might not be true and it's blackmail, but if it's Eric Swalwell, it's true. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical of saying, is blackmail a thing, Brian?
Yes, there are plenty of situations where people have been blackmailed.
Would you be open to the possibility that that's even remotely true
when it comes to Donald Trump? When I see his history with women, when I see the fact that there are a plethora of women way before he got into public office that accused him of rape or sexual abuse, when I see that it was proven by a jury of his peers that they believe that he sexually abused E. Jean Carroll, when I see the way he talked about women and the way he's treated women over the course of his entire lifetime, he has something called a history with women. Now, I also remind you, nothing that Eric Swalwell has been accused of criminally has been proven, or yet has he even been charged with a crime. I'm not defending Eric Swalwell, as I've
just
said,
because there hasn't been enough time given.
Okay, I'm not defending Eric Swalwell, and as I've said 10 times already in this debate, I think he's a scumbag. Let the chips fall where they may. He's an awful human being. You're not even willing to say that about Donald Trump with the cheating and the lying. The fact that he called on 6 Democrats to be executed a few months ago. The fact that
here's the thing is, calling him a scumbag is great and dandy now, but we already knew there was a rap sheet with Eric Swalwell. We already knew there was receipts. We already knew there was investigations.
You didn't know there was a rap sheet with Donald Trump?
Most of that stuff was in the 80s and 90s. Now we're talking about the 2020s, okay?
Thank you for making my point for me. We knew that Donald Trump had you're making my point for me. We knew he had a rap sheet in the 80s and 90s. So don't play the game of, well, we didn't know this about Trump. Eric Swalwell had a rap sheet.
Well, no, they did the exact same with Eric Swalwell in the current and present time, right? Is that you didn't really even care about any of the investigations that were going on about Swalwell. Nobody did in Congress.
He wasn't being investigated for sexual assault or sexual abuse, to my knowledge.
No, for espionage.
Right, and that wasn't.
Which would affect his official capacity.
It was investigated. I don't know why you keep saying that. They investigated and they found there was both sides investigated this.
And there were plenty of times that people were defending Eric Swalwell publicly as well.
So what? It was investigated and they found
the history of his rap sheet. Like, how could you not keep consistent that this guy might have some problems in his official capacity?
You just admitted to me that Donald Trump had a rap sheet dating back to the 80s and 90s. Do you hear the hypocrisy coming out of your mouth? You're talking about Eric Swalwell's rap sheet and you're making the case that somehow he had sexual abuse or something.
Yeah, and people brought up Donald Trump's alleged rap sheet the entire time he was running for president, probably hundreds of thousands of times. It wasn't ignored.
You guys still voted for him. No, you guys still voted for him. No, it was
81 million people. Exactly. So it's not just a few guys.
Exactly. So a lot of those people still voted for him, and you're making my point for me.
So do you think most people in this country then, because over 50% voted for Donald Trump, are okay with rape, sexual assault, other things? Oh, so it was a rigged election?
Hold on. No, didn't say that. You just said over 50% of the country voted for Donald Trump. First of all, a percentage of the country voted. The entire country didn't vote, so you need to look that up. That's number one. Number two, everybody that voted, 49% of the people that voted for Donald Trump. So you also need to look that up because what you're saying is not true. Number three, to answer your question about all the people that did vote, I think there's a lot of people out there, not everybody, but there's a lot of people out there that would rather vote for somebody with a, quote, rap sheet that Donald Trump has as a horrific human being, I'm on record as saying, then vote for a woman and vote for a woman of color. Yes, I think there's a lot of Republicans out there that I talk to every day, regardless of whether Donald Trump is in the Epstein files 30,000 times.
Could it be that they're just more unqualified, Brian? Like the candidates that are women or women of color that they've presented?
So tell me what Donald Trump's qualifications were before he became president of the United States, besides being a reality TV star and tanking dozens of his businesses. What was Donald Trump's qualifications to being president of the United States? Because Kamala Harris was 2-time elected attorney general. She was also a senator and a vice president. So please tell me what Donald Trump's qualifications were for being president of the United States compared to Kamala.
Do you think Donald Trump got elected in 2024 because of how bad Joe Biden did?
Okay, I'll talk to you about Joe Biden, but please answer my question. You just talked about qualifications. Please tell me, compared to Kamala Harris, what was Donald Trump's qualifications to becoming the president of the United States, besides being a reality TV star and scumbag, rap sheet, as you would say? What were his qualifications?
So, you know, the president is the commander in chief of the military, right? So, did Kamala Harris have any qualifications that would help lead a military? No, she was just in government.
What was Donald Trump's qualifications to be the president of the United States? I'm now asking.
Same as Kamala Harris. They had the same military experience.
No, we're talking
commander in chief of the military.
We're not just talking about quote unquote military experience.
Well, you're asking about qualifications, and that's what the qualification of the president would be. So not just governmental experience.
Don't tell me what. I'm not asking about Kamala now. We can talk about Kamala.
Oh, I know. What I'm saying.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, if you're leading the military, commander in chief, the only real qualification that would help for the role of president of the United States would be military experience. So by virtue, they both had the same qualifications to run for president because they both had zero military experience.
Okay. So George W. Bush didn't have military experience. Okay.
Yeah.
Barack Obama didn't have military experience. So now let me ask you the same.
I'd say they're all unqualified for president, honestly.
Okay. But I didn't ask you why he was unqualified. You said that Kamala Harris wasn't as qualified as Trump. So my question to you is, what were Donald Trump?
I said they're equal.
Okay. So what were Donald Trump's qualifications?
They both have none. That's what I've said, Brian, about 5 times already. They both had no qualifications for president, just like George W. Bush, Barack Obama, anybody who hasn't served in the military.
Yeah, so it's not just, you don't have to just...
That doesn't make it that they're a bad president. I'm just saying they both have the same qualifications.
I think that's one qualification that would be nice to have, okay? They both didn't...
well, that's your opinion, Brian. I don't think it would be. I don't really care about it.
So that's the only qualification that's important to you if someone served in the military, yet you support a guy who dodged the draft? Do you realize what you're saying?
Well, okay. So let's say you're hiring for McDonald's as a cashier and they have Microsoft Excel experience. How is that going to help them ring up an order, Brian? Right? Yeah. It would actually customer service experience is
that's
what
weird statement. So. The reason why I was talking about Kamala Harris and experience, as I mentioned before and I mentioned again, is because duly elected twice after passing the bar, becoming an attorney, understanding law, which clearly Donald Trump doesn't understand. He just breaks it every day. She was duly elected twice as attorney general. That's experience. She was a senator. That's experience. She was a vice president. That's experience. And I'm still waiting for you to give me some good qualities or any type of qualifications that Donald Trump had, which I just gave you multiple qualifications that Kamala had. What qualifications did Donald Trump have that would lead you to believe that, hey, he could be a good president? What were his qualifications?
Well, Brian, it's experience that's not relevant to the role, right? That's why you see in a privatized economy, people get hired and not hired because some people can be overqualified. Some people can be qualified in other areas, right? Mm-hmm. Being president of the United States, technically the real qualifications that would be standout ones, let's say we were hiring the president, right, would be military experience because they're leading our troops. They're leading the military. That's the job of the president, head of the executive branch, right? Now, sure, it's experience in the government, experience in other branches of the government, including the executive, but it's not necessarily like stringent to the president, right? So that's what I'd have to say. And a lot of it is bad experience, right? She was horrible. She was a horrible, a prosecutor back in the day. She was horrible at most of the jobs that she did.
Why was she horrible?
Just because of a lot of her liberal votes, right? The repercussions of what she did in California, as a senator as well. She had the most liberal voting record by far.
Okay, so give me a position or a vote that you disagree with that you think ruined California.
Give me a vote or something that she did that was amazing for the rest of our country.
Okay, but you're the one who's making the claim she was horrible. I didn't make any claims. I just said she's more qualified than Trump. You're making the claim that she was horrible. She was horrible for California. Give me an example of a policy that you think was horrible for California. Give me an example of something she did as an attorney general or senator that you think was horrible.
She supported the high-speed rail. She supported the high-speed rail, and that hasn't been built at all. It was $150 billion worth of money just down the tubes. $150 billion would have solved the homeless crisis out here. I see people leaning over trash cans because they're off of fentanyl. But if we actually supported local law enforcement to go out there and help these people with privatized institutions, could be fixed. So that's one example.
Okay, so let's go with that. You don't want wasteful spending, and you care about the homeless and you think Kamala Harris
Donald Trump has ran up the debt. I know that's what you're going to say.
Well,
Okay, so
you're talking about homeless and wasteful spending. I can give you multiple examples, not just the war that we both agree on is horrible. That's costing
we're
us.
talking about Kamala Harris, not Donald Trump. So let's get back to the center.
The $150 billion high-speed rail plan that you're speaking to had nothing to do with Kamala Harris, why it wasn't built yet. Do you know why it wasn't built? Do you have
it was mostly done with state funding, but she had to give federal approval
why
for it
wasn't
because
it
it's
built?
a high-speed rail.
Why wasn't
you have
it built?
To get federal approval for that.
Why wasn't it built yet? Do you know
Tell
why?
me, Brian. Why?
Okay. Because people have continually voted against it for the funding for it, and people don't want it to happen. When I mean people, I mean a lot of people on the right. You could look this up if you don't believe me. That wasn't Kamala Harris's fault. Now, if you're going to talk about homeless, I could certainly talk to you about Republican policy versus Democrat policy when it comes to homeless. Now, she was an elected
How
official.
come all the homeless happen to be in 80% majority liberal areas?
Okay, so first of all, that's not true, and you're going to have a larger
It's true.
No, it's not. You're going to have a larger stinge of homeless people in larger cities. I'm happy to have that conversation with you, but the point
So let's look at both warm cities, Miami versus Los Angeles, right? They have the same climate, they have same compatibility for homeless people, yet LA has probably 3 to 4 times the homeless population per capita. Why is that the reason?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, when you look at the landscape of Miami and LA, you tell me. Miami is far more upscale. LA, I don't like LA, by the way. I'm not a fan of Los Angeles, but I can tell you that in Los Angeles, there's a lot of issues and a lot of problems there. I'm not defending Gavin Newsom, but you're talking about one governor, okay, and one specific instance of homeless. Listen, there's a lot of homeless issues in the state of Nevada and Las Vegas. I'm not necessarily going to blame our Republican governor, Joe Lombardo, for that. I blame the scope and what's going on in this country right now. I mean, we can do the same thing, and we can play that same game when it comes to every policy.
But then how do you actually solve homelessness if you're just going to say, well, as a country as a whole, it's an entire problem?
Absolutely.
You have to narrow it down.
Absolutely.
We need to micro this, not macro.
Absolutely. So we were told by Elon Musk a year and a half ago that they are going to get rid of all the wasteful spending in Doge, and they are going to use that money to help people that are struggling. There is one side of the aisle that wants to help people, and we're specifically talking about homeless now, when it comes to mental illness and getting people into rehab facilities. One party wants to allocate more funds policy-wise to help people when it comes to healthcare. You see, what happens is when you take 20 million people, which is what Donald Trump did, and specifically with the big and beautiful bill, when you take people off of healthcare, when they can't get the mental health that care that they need and they don't have money to pay for it, you're going to see more people suffer from addiction. You're going to see more people suffer from depression. You're going to see more people on the streets. There is one party that actually wants to help people and give people the health care that they deserve. Meanwhile, for 9 years, 10 years, the guy who you still support has been complaining about Barack Obama's health care plan. So my question to you is directly related to this. Can you please tell me, what is Donald Trump's replacement health care plan to Obamacare, which is directly related to the homeless problem in this country right now? What is his health care?
Well, healthcare isn't directly correlated to the homelessness problem.
It's not? What?
No, not. It's one part of it, Brian. The healthcare plan affects everybody in the entire country.
Right, let me ask you a question. Yeah. These people that are homeless, why do you think they're homeless?
Most of them are homeless veterans. I would say a majority of them are. Right?
I agree. I don't disagree. So what do you think is the issue, though? I agree with you. What do you think is the reason why they're homeless? What do you think would be the main reason why some of these people are homeless?
Lack of incentive or opportunity, right? Because of other policies, other programs that can allow them to live in this manner, right? They are not necessarily bound or tied to any occupation. They're not bound or tied to any responsibility. They're not bound or tied to anything that is going to further their position in the world, right? So a lot of times you see people perfectly happy to live homeless on the beach in LA, in a lot of these areas, because of all of these outside factors, and there's no incentive or drive for them to actually better themselves. So there has to be ways and opportunities for them to do that. A lot of our private businesses won't accept homeless people to work for them because of just how they look or when they go into interview, among other things. So I think there's just a lot of problems with that. There's no incentive for these people to get out of these positions. And then as a byproduct of that, they fall into drugs. They fall into cutting themselves. They fall into even some of these people are chopping limbs off and stuff. It's really disgusting to see on the street.
I agree. That's disgusting. So let me address this head on with you. By the way, I would respectfully disagree with you. I'll talk about incentive and opportunity in a moment. There have been studies that have been done everywhere that about 8 out of 10 homeless people suffer from addiction and depression. So that's number one. That directly relates to healthcare. Number two, you talk about incentive and opportunity. I don't think it's incentives for Republicans to not be willing to raise minimum wage. Number two, there are at least
Federal?
there are at least half the people in this country right now that are working that can't afford to pay for healthcare. So if you want to talk about incentive and opportunity, in my opinion, everybody that works full time should be able to get healthcare. Which is the party that is constantly voting against those bills that would help people and give them incentive? That would be the Republican Party. Bernie Sanders has led the troops in the Democrat Party. 98% of Democrats agree.
So let's say I was a Democrat senator, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, let's allocate $2 trillion to healthcare. Does that mean I'm the big man on the hill actually advocating for healthcare for the rest of the country?
No, here's what it means.
You're just virtue signaling.
No,
and that's what a lot of Democrats do in Congress. And the Senate.
It's not virtue signaling when you have the president of the United States, and I repeat this again, giving the biggest tax breaks to the richest people in this country. Let me explain. $100 billion in tax breaks to the Jeff Bezoses of the world. That is not an incentive for people that are struggling, that don't have money, that are not getting their taxes lowered. So you talk about incentive and opportunity. I would certainly start there. The top 1% getting all these tax breaks is not an incentive to everybody else that is struggling. I would look at your own party, the Republican Party, for that.
Okay, incentive and opportunity, no tax on tips or overtime. That helped lift the bottom 50% of this country.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Carson, because I think that's a good point that I actually wanted to bring up with you next. So I'm glad you brought that up. No tax on tips. First of all, let's define it. It's not no tax on tips. It's no tax on tips at a $25,000 cap. Why is that? Why is that important? There are a lot of being in a service industry town. As you know, Carson, I live in Las Vegas. People make a living on just tips. They make a lot more than $25,000 a year. But let's talk about that DoorDash driver, for example, right? No tax on tips. She shows up, which was staged, by the way, and it was pathetic. But she shows up and she's saying, "Thank you so much, Mr. President. I made $11,000 on tips." Okay. So that means that she probably saved about, maybe $3,000, somewhere around that ballpark, where she would normally have had to have paid the IRS for those tips. Her husband is dying of cancer, and it's a very sad story. Do you know how much money she has to pay in order for her husband to get the care that he needs with chemotherapy? And in this big and beautiful bill, somebody that's making that kind of money that would not qualify for Medicaid now, do you know how much money she's actually losing? I'll give you a hint. The average household income that the government pays for a family, and many of those families do not have people in their family that have cancer, is $40,000. So she's saving $2,000 or $3,000 to this great no tax on tips capped at $25,000. What good does it do when you're taking away Medicaid coverage for people like her when her husband is dying of cancer?
Well, most people don't get more than $25,000 in tips over a year, Brian, right? That's number one. And that was to prevent other service industry jobs from money laundering. Yes, it absolutely is. And then two, also most states, and I think this should be done at federal level as well, if you don't make minimum wage in an hour for a service industry job, you get matched and paid out by the business and even helped by the government in some extent to minimum wage.
Carson, there are waiters, waitresses, bellmen. I know this pretty well because I live in probably arguably the biggest service industry town in the world that are getting paid like $4 or $5 an hour. The reason why legally they're allowed to pay these people half of what minimum wage or more would be is because of the tips they make. So when you say categorically that the no tax on tips thing, they're not making more than $25,000 on tips, you need to speak to some people that I know that are in the service industry that absolutely make more. But the point, even if you were right, let me just say for the benefit
I'd love
of
for you to meet Chili servers, among other servers, other hosts, other industries in Arizona where they make $100,000 a year. And if that cap was way higher, they would be making 125K, 150K. What does that do for our society, one as a whole, Brian, if a Chili server is making 150K a year? On average, right? That's going to make food costs way higher. That's going to make all the costs of everything that you do essentially, because you have to go to the grocery store, you have to go to restaurants, you have to go to all these service industries way higher. So then how could Donald Trump lower prices if that's the case?
First of all, I would say most waiters that work at a restaurant like Chili's are not making six figures a year. I don't know where you're getting that from. At a nicer restaurant, perhaps, not at Chili's. That's number one. And the point that I was trying to make, which you didn't really address, was the big and beautiful bill. You're bragging about no tax on tips, which it seemed like it's the only thing that the Trump administration can brag about right now because everything else is in the toilet. But even that no tax on tips, even if you were right, I'm still talking about medical coverage and the fact that this woman's husband is dying of cancer and it's costing her a lot more than $11,000 a year or the $3,000 a year that she's saving on tips or the $100 tip that Donald Trump gave her. That's going to go a long way. She's losing her health care coverage while we're spending $2 billion a day on a war. Do you see the point I'm trying to make?
So how does Donald Trump fix that problem? Is it by universal health care, Brian? Because then the health care that she's going to get is absolute dog shit. Okay, well, her cancer wouldn't be solved then.
Well, first of all, the first thing you don't do is get us into.
I want her to have the best care in the world.
As do I, and that's not going to happen when you get us into an ill-advised war, just like George W. Bush did, and it costs us $2 billion a day with no clear end in sight. That's number one. You don't give the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%. You give
the reality of it, Brian, is even if we didn't spend that money in the war, it wouldn't be spent on healthcare. Okay, can we just be honest with ourselves? It wasn't during Obama even. Right? Because you could say, well, he shouldn't have bombed all those countries in the Middle East and wasted that money. It could have been reallocated to healthcare. Right?
Okay, I disagree. So first of all, how much uranium was
how do we know? So how would we know that defense spending would have been allocated to healthcare spending? We don't. Right. Well, so that's a hypothetical.
We know that Barack Obama came up with a plan. You might disagree with the plan called Obamacare.
It was really his handlers, okay? The president doesn't come up with these plans, Brian. That's how government works.
Okay, so
he was presented a plan by his team.
So going by that standard,
let's not glorify him too much.
Going by that standard, Donald Trump and his handlers have been complaining about Obamacare for 10 years. So let's take Donald Trump out of the equation. Can you please tell me the replacement plan in the last 10 years that his handlers have come up with? Just give me the plan. What's the plan?
So when he tried to eliminate the Obamacare stuff and enact the first step of a healthcare plan, he was turned down in late 2018. What was
the plan? I don't remember a plan. What was the plan? Tell me.
Did he have to make a public plan announcing it? Yes. No.
Yeah. No. So when you have a replacement,
is that his duty as the president?
To present it to Congress for a vote? Yes, it is. You have to have a plan to present to Congress so that Congress can vote on it or not. Now, if he came up with a plan,
the president doesn't make the laws, Congress does. So why would he have to do that? Shouldn't Congress be a part of it?
So
you're giving more power to the president. That's worse for our country.
Okay, it's worse to not come up with a plan. The point that I was trying to make.
No, it's nice when Congress actually helps come up with a plan, and Congress wasn't doing that.
So Congress votes on the plan that the president and his administration put forth. The Congress says, are we going?
No, Congress makes the laws, Brian. Right. They don't just vote on them.
Donald Trump puts them into effect, and then Congress has the opportunity whether they want to vote for a plan or not vote for a plan. Yes, there are congressmen and congresswomen that have bills that they put forth for votes. I agree with you. But the president of the United States and his administration also have the ability to come up with a plan and then present it to Congress. The point that I was trying to make to you, which you still have not admitted, is that Donald Trump and his cronies have been bitching and complaining, about Obamacare for now 10 years. You're not a serious lawmaker if you can't come up with any sort of replacement plan, which, by the way, Donald Trump said it's coming in 2 weeks.
Well, the president, let's just get back into our system, isn't a lawmaker. He's a law enforcer. He doesn't make laws, Brian. Let's learn our constitutional republic, okay? Congress makes laws, the executive branch enforces the law, and the judicial reinforces the law, right? So
So it's not entirely true, but then let me ask you a question. If that was true, why is it in Donald Trump's first administration, he said probably 30 times, we're going to have a replacement plan for you in 2 weeks. We're going to have a replacement plan for you. It's coming soon. It's coming in a month. If he didn't have the ability to do that, then was he lying when he said that when he was president?
No, he was speaking on behalf of Congress, just like how Obama did with Obamacare when they drafted up the Obamacare law, the Healthcare Act.
He was not speaking to members of Congress. He was talking about his own administration. In fact, his own press secretary in a 60 Minutes interview, you could look this up.
Spicer?
No, Kayleigh McEnany, as he called her, Milk Toast. I think that was his nickname for her after she left.
Milk Toast?
Milk Toast. In the middle of that interview with, I believe it was Katie Couric, it might have been somebody else, he literally says, hey, we have the plan. Do you have the binder? Show her the binder. And it was allegedly, and we learned it was a lie, a binder of a fake healthcare plan. Trump said this 30 times or more when he was president, that he had a replacement plan. It never came. He had 10 years. So we can get into the weeds about this, but the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump is not a serious policymaker. You asked me, how can we help the homeless? I'm with you. I think it's horrible. I want to help these people, but it's not going to help the country when we're in an ill-advised war, when he gets us $8.2 trillion in debt.
Well, then we have the same argument, Brian. You're saying, well, if we just reallocated money from that war to actually help healthcare and homelessness, then it would be solved. Just like if you reallocated $150 billion from the high-speed rail project. Yeah, we could solve all these problems with reallocation of funds. It's whether or not our politicians actually want to do it. Biden could have done it under his administration instead of funneling $250 billion to a war in Ukraine, right? Just like all of this stuff. It could have been done with federal money.
So if we're going to talk about Ukraine, it's very simple. Okay, Carson, it's very, very simple. It wasn't Joe Biden's choice for Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. If Iran had invaded Israel or Iran had attacked the United States, I would feel very differently about this war. You want to talk about apples to oranges.
It's still a choice.
They invaded our allies. That is not what happened with this war. And you know it because you're against this war just like I am. I know you're not stupid. Those are two completely different scenarios. I'm not going to change your mind, but the fact
that they definitely are. I would say they definitely are. But did Russia present a clear and imminent threat to the United States? So are you really going to say that?
So first of all, Vladimir Putin is a threat to the world. That's number one. But let me answer your question. Let me answer your question directly. When a country invades our allies, you don't have to say that country was a direct threat to the United States for us to help our allies. If Iran, and by the way, I'm not a fan of the Israeli government, but if Iran had attacked Israel and did anything even close to what Putin has done to Ukraine, I would support this war. That's not what Iran did. And you had Tulsi Gabbard under oath 10 months ago that said that Iran posed no imminent threat and did not have further capabilities of nuclear weapons. And then 8 months ago, we were told that we obliterated their capabilities.
Yeah, no, here's the thing is if you're going to allow a middleman to be in the middle, right, which in this case, it would have been Ukraine. And for the Iranian case, it would have been the Hamas in southern Lebanon that was bombing Israel, right? There is a threat there if you're going to let a third party, a middleman in it, determine that. So I'm not saying they're the same conflict, but I'm saying your logical argument there isn't consistent either because you're allowing a middleman to determine the United States destiny and how we get involved in the conflict. Now, if it was directly ally to ally, conflict to conflict, then sure, that would be consistent, but you're not being consistent because there's still a middleman in these conflicts. Ukraine was the middleman and the Hamas and the Houthis that were bombing Israel were the middleman in the Iranian war that led to direct conflict with the United States. And then if Biden was given the opportunity, we could have done direct conflict in Russia, but we didn't because it wasn't a NATO ally. And Israel is definitely a closer ally to the United States than Ukraine, no doubt about it. So
the argument is pretty simple to me. I mean, when was the last time we got into a war? Who was president?
Like an actual war that got congressional approval?
Correct.
Yeah, George Bush.
Right. And why did we go to war? We were told what?
Weapons of mass destruction.
Right. So the last time we had a war, which was another ill-advised war, we were lied to. We were lied by the Israeli government. We were lied to. And they didn't find weapons of mass destruction. Thousands of our own soldiers were killed. Hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis were killed. Then we fast forward. Say what you want about Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They did not get us in ill-advised wars, boots on the ground. They didn't get us into any wars. Now we are in another war led by another Republican. So
under Joe Biden, military members dying in the Middle East, the death count is still higher for Joe Biden, even if we weren't in a direct official conflict, than Donald Trump. You realize that, right?
How many Afghans?
That's all I care about is American citizens, our soldiers dying. I don't care about the official diplomatic ties.
Right, so you care. So, okay, good. I'm glad to hear you say that. So I would imagine you didn't like the Afghan withdrawal, right? We had, I think, over a dozen American soldiers that died. So we agree that's horrible, right? Horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, good. How many soldiers died in Afghanistan?
And Joe Biden could have prevented it, just like how you're saying Donald Trump could have prevented this war in the Middle East. Do you agree with that?
John Bolton has done numerous interviews where he said Donald Trump's policy withdrawal was almost exactly identical to Joe Biden's. But the reason why I asked you that question, how many soldiers died in Afghanistan when Donald Trump was president?
You tell me, Brian.
Okay, so I'll tell you because I know the number and it's very sad. But you're talking about all you really care about is our soldiers dying. And by the way, I think that's extremely serious, and I agree with you. But then when
What's the total death count between Obama versus Trump for a 6-year period?
But I brought up Joe Biden. Okay, 64 American soldiers died in Afghanistan when Donald Trump was president. I think the Afghan withdrawal was terrible, and every innocent soldier that dies and the loss of life is absolutely horrible. The point that I was trying to make to you is that Joe Biden didn't get us in any illegal or ill-advised wars. Barack Obama didn't get us in any wars. You and I agree on this war. It is a travesty, and it's despicable and disgusting.
Do you think this war is illegal? Like it's truly illegal, like it should.
Well, he didn't go through Congress. I know that. I think
but the threshold for going through Congress is having 7,500 boots on the ground, actually doing a targeted military operation.
I'll tell you that he's committed war crimes. The school where over 160 school children were murdered, and then they immediately lied about it. And the guy who you still support said that it was Iran and their Tomahawk missiles when we know Iran doesn't even have Tomahawk missiles. Listen, Carson, those are war crimes. Those are war crimes.
Do we know it was 100% the United States, or was it Israel's decision?
No, because Israel. No, first of all, there's no evidence, and by the way, they've already admitted it. The members of the Trump administration, after they were caught, have already, because they're so incompetent, they have not blamed Israel. They have taken responsibility. They said it was a mistake. Okay, but days after, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, where at least Donald Trump was claiming that it was Iran. Iran has never had Tomahawk missiles, and they're lying because Donald Trump is a war criminal. That's why.
I don't know. I think Pete Hegseth has actually done a really great job. He might have to consider running in 2028 because he's actually done a really good job, I think. But
all right, well, good luck with that. I don't know. Maybe he can run on Signalgate. I don't know, but I wish you good luck with that. Anyway, Carson, I appreciate you being a stand-up guy and knowing that we were going to have a conversation. That obviously we disagree on a lot of it, but I do appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and to have a lively debate. Maybe it wasn't as lively as our in-person debate, but that's okay. That's okay.
You know, next time we get in person, I could almost promise it would get as fiery as before.
Okay, good.
You know?
I like it. I like it. Carson, I do appreciate you coming on and doing this. I really do. And we'll do it again. Okay.
Absolutely. I'm at the beach right now, so got to get out there.
I'm jealous. It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that quickly before I let you go. I'm going to Berkeley College in California, Cal Berkeley next week for the UNF America tour. And then I'm going to North Carolina for a debate at the end of the month. I've never been there before. I heard there's nice beaches out there. So I'm a pasty white guy. So obviously I need to tan. That's obvious. So
you know what you're going to have to do? You need to recreate the picture of Biden in his beach chair out on the Carolina beach. That's what you got to do.
At least Biden and I are willing to take our shirt off. I don't think Donald Trump has ever taken his shirt off in public, but we'll leave that for another day.
Brian, if that's what you want to see, I'm sure President Trump would do it for you.
Okay? I just would. No, I definitely don't want to see that. And by the way, neither does Melania, and that's why they don't sleep in the same bed, and they haven't since they conceived Barron. But that's another story for another day. Carson, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. Thanks for being a good sport.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Right.
Have a good one.
All right, you too. All right, everybody. Lively debate. We're going to play some audio. Then we're going to take calls. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play some audio first. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll get to the calls, and we'll get to the YouTube super chat. So there's a lot to get to. That was a spirited and lively debate, as I expected it would be. So as I mentioned, Pete Hegseth held a press conference earlier today. And Pete Hegseth is in more of a war with the media than he is talking about the war that we have in Iran right now. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to watch the fake Christian white supremacist himself, Pete Hegseth. Have a listen to this.
Speaking of choosing wisely, a note to the press corps, to the American media, as I just can't help but notice the endless stream of garbage, the relentlessly negative coverage. You cannot resist peddling, despite the historic and important success of this effort and the success of our troops. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what side some of you are actually on. It's incredibly unpatriotic. This same press corps, not this exact same press corps, but at least an older press corps, bent over backwards during the Biden administration to explain away, the disastrous and disgraceful Afghanistan withdrawal. You called it the greatest airlift in American history. It's almost like you're cheering only for one side.
I want you guys to think about that. He's saying that the media is cheering for Iran to win. Now, obviously, not only is that absolutely despicable from Pete Hegseth, he only wants positive coverage. So, example, when some of our brave men and women in uniform are coming home in caskets, he doesn't want us covering that. Only the good news. Doesn't want us covering the fact of all these innocent civilians that have lost their lives. And I want you to listen to the extremist, the religious extremist, because that's exactly who Pete Hegseth is. And you hear it in this statement right here that we are going to play for you.
Our press are just like these Pharisees. Not all of you, but the legacy Trump-hating press. Your politically motivated animus for President Trump nearly completely blinds you from the brilliance of our American warriors. The Pharisees scrutinized every good act in order to find a violation, only looking for the negative. The hardened hearts of our press are calibrated only to impugn. I would ask you to open your eyes to the goodness, the historic success of our troops, the courage of this president, and this historic moment for a deal that could end the Iranian nuclear threat, the incredible battlefield victory laid before your eyes, the not one, but two incredible rescue missions, miracles, you might say.
Miracles. Let me be very clear. I'm really glad that we found that pilot. Anytime we can bring an American home, it's a wonderful thing. We would not have been in this situation to begin with. You wouldn't have had to try to find a pilot in Iran if you guys didn't go to war in the first place, you freaking idiots. If we weren't in this ill-advised and illegal war, you wouldn't have had to have gone through these missions to begin with. Are we glad that you found this pilot? Yes. But our brave men and women, over a couple hundred or more that have been seriously injured, 13 members that have come home in caskets, but we want to praise you guys as heroes for finding this guy? Screw you, Pete Hegseth. Screw you. We don't even know how much this war is costing us. Here's a perfect example of earlier today in Washington, D.C., where Vought won't even tell members of Congress under oath how much this war is costing us. Watch this.
This past Sunday, I was sitting in church with my family, and our minister preached from the book of Mark, the 3rd chapter. And in the passage, Jesus entered a synagogue and healed a man with a withered hand. The Pharisees came to watch. And as the scripture reads, they came to see whether Jesus, would heal him, or he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. You see, the Pharisees, the so-called and self-appointed elites of their time, they were there to witness, to write everything down, to report. but their hearts were hardened. Even though they witnessed a literal miracle, it didn't matter. They were only there to explain away the goodness in pursuit of their agenda. As the passage ends, the Pharisees went out and immediately held counsel against him, how to destroy him. I sat there in church and I thought, our press are just like these Pharisees. Not all of you, but the legacy Trump-hating press.
So, again, you have Pete Hegseth offering an anecdote about being in church last Sunday to compare the American media to Pharisees. And as I mentioned, these fake Christians are all among us in society and in the Trump administration. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't even know how much this war, we have a ballpark figure of about $2 billion a day in the halls of Congress and in the chambers today. You had Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill that were questioning Vought and others. And the budget director won't tell us how much this war is costing us. They absolutely know the number, but watch as he speaks to the world and will not give us an answer.
And have you included, Director Vought, estimates or a fund for the war in Iran in the budget you presented to Congress?
No, sir.
Are you planning to present that in short order?
We are working on a supplemental for Congress for additional needs. We're working through that review process. Part of it is the length of the war, part of the operations overseas, part of it is the extent to which some items might be fiscal year 26 or 27, and we're working through that.
Thank you. Would I be in the ballpark to say we've already spent at least $50 billion?
I wouldn't want to make a characterization of that at this point.
Okay. I would say, as the most knowledgeable person in the executive branch on the budget, I would expect you to have pretty good numbers on that. So I'm a little disappointed in that answer. My understanding is that the most recent plans, at least circulated in the press, have been to present a supplemental of somewhere in the ballpark of $80 to $100 billion. Is that more or less where you're headed?
Well, again, I think my guess is if you were to be on the inside of the Department of War, these costs would fluctuate given the day. And so I think it's hard to give you an average cost. And that's one of the reasons we're going to come after much work and review to give you a full request with the time.
Thank you. I do think it's important when a budget to include all the things that we know are going on in order to have a good foundation when it's presented. But I do look forward to whatever you present in the near future.
I want you guys to think about that for a minute. That's Donald Trump's budget director, and he won't tell us. He won't tell us how much this war is costing us. Now, we have professionals that are estimating it's around $2 billion a day, but he won't tell us under oath. Make no mistake about it. Everybody in the Trump administration, including the budget director, know exactly how much this war is costing us. But they won't tell the American people. They don't want you to know while you're paying $5 a gallon for gas. These people are sick. You want to talk about homeless. You want to talk about people that are struggling, that are living paycheck to paycheck. You want to talk about people in this country that have to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. And Donald Trump and members of his administration, including his budget director, will not tell us how much this war is costing us. Again, estimations by professionals who understand the budget and understand this war and what is being done estimate this war is costing us somewhere around the vicinity of $2 billion a day. This war has already been going on for a month. You do the math. So while all this is going on, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is speaking today. It's my Robert F. Kennedy Jr. impersonation. Before we get to this raccoon story, which is just unbelievably insane, It seems as though every single time Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is questioned on the statements he makes on a podcast, he always says it's a lie. And then we have those actual words that are played on social media of him making the statements that he makes. Sewell was talking about a 2024 podcast interview he did when talking about African Americans and young Black children. Watch this.
In a 2024 podcast interview, you suggested that Black children on ADHD medication should be reparented. You said every Black kid is now just standardly put on Adderall, SSRI, benzos, which are known to induce violence, and that those children are going to have to go somewhere to get reparented. There is a lot to unpack in that comment. I know that you've already answered several of the questions I was going to ask, and so I'm just going to rephrase them. Mr. Secretary, you've already admitted that you are not board certified physician, and you've already admitted that you did not go to medical school. Have you ever reparented, or parented, I should say, a Black child?
I don't even know what that phrase means, and I doubt
just
that
a yes
I
or
said
no
it.
answer.
I doubt that I
Can't
said
say
that
it.
phrase.
You
No, I'm
absolutely
not going to answer something that I didn't say.
You absolutely said it.
Oh, I'd like to hear the recording.
So to be
Because
clear,
it doesn't make
sir,
any
I'm
sense.
I'm
I
gonna
don't even know
reclaim
what
my
it
time.
means.
I don't either. That's why I'm
And
asking.
by the way,
So to be
of
clear, you're not a
26
doctor, you have no medical degree, and you have no formal medical training.
as
You
of
have never parented a Black
as of
child. Yet you
24
are
of the
suggesting
26
that
HHS
government-
secretaries
Mr.
have not had
Secretary,
medical
This is my
degrees.
time. And I say to the chairman, I want to reclaim my time. So you are not a doctor, have no formal medical training, and you've never parented a Black child, and yet you are suggesting that the federal government should take Black children away from their families and reparent them and send them off to some wellness farm instead of providing them with evidence-based.
You're just
medical
making
care.
stuff up.
I am absolutely not making this up. Mr. Secretary, in your opinion, what factors should the federal government consider when reparenting a Black child who has been on ADHD or ADD?
I don't even know what
rhetorical,
you're
sir.
talking about, Congressman.
I
I don't know what you're talking
deficit,
about. I don't know what
deficit
reparenting
disorder.
even means.
I don't either, but you said that.
I did not
Mr.
say that.
Secretary, for Black families in the United States, the issue of family separation is not new. Our nation has a long and painful history of separating Black children from their families.
He absolutely did say that. And it was in a podcast in 2024, and you could see it online. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is lying. And she's absolutely correct. He has zero medical experience. Let me repeat, zero. But I'll tell you something Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does have some experience of: cutting off the penis of a raccoon. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in his own words, talked about this. I'm not making this up. That's right. There you go. That very handsome raccoon. I don't know if that's the actual raccoon, by the way. We're just putting that up there for effect, I guess. Numchuck put that up there for effect. I think it's actually kind of funny, although I feel really bad for the raccoon, whether he was dead or alive. Robert F. Kennedy, and look at that look of Robert F. Kennedy. Look at that face, by the way. It's almost like you're admiring the physique of the raccoon. I don't know. I'm just saying that's a really weird face. Yes, that's right. I'm not making this up. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once cut the penis off of a road-killed raccoon in an incident that is just one of several involving dead animals that the U.S. Health Secretary has been involved in. In a new book called Robert F.K. Jr., The Fall and Rise was published this week, and it reveals a diary entry that describes the prominent vaccine critic and leader of the Make America Healthy Again. He said, "I was standing in front of my parked car on the I-684, cutting the penis out of a road-killed raccoon, thinking about how weird some of my family members have turned out to be." Kennedy wrote in my journal. He added, "My kids waited patiently in the car." He's cutting off the penis of a raccoon. Cutting off the penis of a raccoon while his kids are in the car. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was asked about this today by a TMZ reporter, and this is exactly how that video went down.
Secretary, what did you do with the raccoon's dead penis? Where is it now?
What a creepy laugh. Did you see that creepy laugh? Now, obviously, to any normal human being, if I was coming out of some important meeting or wherever I was and somebody made that statement about me, I would say, well, that's obviously not true. I want you guys to think about what a lunatic this guy is. His kids this is a guy who staged a murder of a bear at Central Park. If that's not weird enough, he cut off the head of a whale. This is all stuff that he's admitted. And he cut off the penis of a raccoon. I want you to think about this for a second. Your kids are in the car. I'm not saying anybody would ever do this. That's normal. But think about the circumstance. Your family and your kids are in the car, and for some reason you see a dead raccoon on the side of the road. And the first thing that entered your mind is, oh, where's his pecker? I'm going to cut it off. And that's what he did. He also said in the book, I'd like to pick up some of these dead seagulls for my skull collection. The book quotes Kennedy as saying, though his schedule on the day did not allow him to pause his journey and harvest the bones. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy who is the U.S. Health Secretary. He cuts off penises off of dead animals for fun. He buzzsaws whale heads, and he stages bear murders in Central Park. But keep in mind, Donald Trump only hires the best people. I'm sorry, can we put that image up again, if that's okay? I just want you to look at, just real quickly here, just want you to look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s face when he's looking at this record. Can we please just look at that face? Look at that face. How is he not in the Epstein files, by the way? By the way, if you want to talk about cutting off genitalia, I'd say for some of the names that are in the Epstein files of the people that allegedly committed crimes, that I'd be okay with that. Look at that face. Look at that. What a freak. My goodness. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Anyway, here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to open up the phone lines at 702-221-7283. And again, that number to call is 702-221-7283. 702-221-SAVE. Yeah, we will be talking a little bit about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the guy that is in charge of your health. The health secretary is cutting off penises of raccoons. 702-221-7283. Take a quick break after this. We'll be back in 90 seconds. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling?
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. On a Thursday, we want to go to the YouTube super chat real quickly here, and then we will take some phone calls. There's a lot of people with some raccoon sympathy. By the way, I join all of you in that sympathy. My God, what a nut job this guy is. Thank you, Alex, who says, I have was SA because it wasn't on tape. Doesn't mean that it wasn't. Well, that's true in regards. I think Alex is referring to the interview I did with Carson, who basically said, Alexa, I'm sorry, who said, well, it's not on tape, so it couldn't have happened. I mean, that's basically what he was saying, which is absolutely insane. Food and Sleep says, people looked at the alternative and believed Donald J. Trump was a better choice. That's how bad they thought the Dems were. Yeah, that's true. I think it's paying the price right now for your vote, literally and figuratively. I completely agree. We'll read more of those YouTube super chats as the show moves on, but we are going to take some phone calls now. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. And again, if you want to be a part of the program, the number to call 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. Let's start off with Dave. Dave is first up on PTL. Hey, Dave, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, how you doing, man? That was a hell of a, interview. I don't know if I want to go through that again. That gave me a migraine headache, dude. That was just crazy.
I'm sure a lot of people might feel that way,
Yeah, these people in the White House, Brian, they are the most despicable, disgusting people in the whole world. And, I want to make myself clear. How dare these people, Hedge guy, whatever the hell his name is, using the name of God and Jesus Christ in vain and using the Bible when he doesn't. And I went to Bible college for 8 years, and that's totally out of scripture. That's number one. Number two, I think what they should do with this guy, what he did to the raccoon, is that maybe they should make somebody make a cartoon of Gulliver, right, with the raccoons tying him up on the damn beach. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, what type of am I crazy here? What type of sick human being acts and does these sorts of behaviors? This is a very weird, sick, demented man with the whale cutting off a head whale and this raccoon story. And the bear in Central Park. This is a lunatic. He's like mentally disturbed in the worst possible way. And I appreciate the call, Dave. It's always good to hear from you. Thank you, sir. 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to David. David is next up on PTL. Hi, David.
Oh, hey. Thank you, Brian. I saw a couple of days ago you tweeted about that woman, Savannah Hernandez, at that rally. And you said... you just said a light push or shove and they go viral. Who were you referring to when you said the light push or shove?
Yeah, the reason
referring to the father who pushed her. Or?
So I'll entertain this phone call, even though you're completely not on topic again. But I will still entertain your call, even though I ask my listeners with respect to please call in and be on topic to what I'm referring to, because I don't want it to be a free for all. But I will still answer your question, David. Since you are respectful to me, I will be respectful to you. When I watched that video and she was pushed to the ground, she immediately got back up. It is completely subjective whether you think it was a really hard push or a light push. And you can disagree with me all you want, but here's what I know because I talked to Savannah actually today. As you know, I talked to the family yesterday. If it was extremely violent that you think it was, then this man would have been arrested by now. Now, maybe there's a chance he's still arrested. And I say this on the air right now. If anybody in that family that I interviewed yesterday is arrested, charged, and eventually convicted, then I'll say I was wrong. I don't think I am.
Wrong about what?
Wrong about a crime that was committed. I don't think I am. So here's the bottom line.
He wasn't assaulted by him? Or?
What I believe in all the videos that I have seen is that it was a two-way street. I think both parties didn't handle it as well as they should have. And I think it was a two-way street.
Did he assault her? Like just brass tacks, do you think he assaulted her is what I'm asking. When he pushed her to the ground, she fell.
Do you think she assaulted anybody? Well, I'll answer your question by saying, do you think Savannah assaulted anybody by that same standard?
No, I don't.
No.
Think so.
Okay, then the answer is no. I don't think so. Because in that video, Savannah, I'm explaining it to you. I've watched multiple videos that maybe you haven't even seen. I've had listeners send me different videos, which I'm going to post today. There are videos, excuse me. There are videos of her making physical contact first in a couple different scenarios. Now,
that doesn't mean assault, though.
Okay, well, if you make physical contact with somebody without their permission, if you put your hand on somebody's neck, there's video of her putting her hand on the mother's neck, on Chris's wife's neck, you could make the argument based on the video that she committed assault. Now, I actually think law enforcement is handling this the right way so far. And I've talked to I've talked to Savannah.
Here's the thing. Even if you could make it, let's just say you could somehow make a case that she assaulted someone. I don't think you could, but I'm willing to entertain hearing that. You can't really make the case that the father didn't assault her. I mean,
so here's my case. I'll make it very simple for you. If they arrest if they arrest Chris, they need to arrest Savannah too. If they arrest Savannah, they should probably arrest Chris.
But why?
Too.
Because she did not do anything that's
disagree.
The level that he
disagree. And if that disagree, and if that was, it's not the level of how hard a push is. If you assault somebody, you assault somebody, and police officers don't say, well, your shove or your slap in the face wasn't as violent as you being pushed in the back. That's not how the laws work. So I'll repeat it again. If they arrest Chris, okay, well, again, you keep saying context matters. So let me ask you a very simple question, because I asked Savannah this question today, which, by the way, she's a coward and she did not answer. I'm still waiting for an answer from her. What would you say about those who beat cops on January 6th? Are they hostages or are they patriots? If you just beat a cop.
I know you kind of go back.
Well, please answer. Please answer.
I'll answer. I've said this to you many times. I completely disavow everything that went on in January 6th.
That was assault, right? That was assault.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was assault.
So you don't agree with Donald Trump. So, okay, fair enough. I'm just asking you. I'm just asking you.
Look, okay, that's fine, but that's a totally separate thing.
It's not, and here's why. No, it's not, David. David,
Sure.
I'm not accusing you of that. I haven't called you that. I just asked you the question. Here's why I bring it up. 99% of the people on social media that are attacking me, that are saying I support woman abuse, which obviously I don't, which I've said time and time again, I don't think anybody deserves to get their hands put on. I don't think anybody, and if law enforcement feel like a crime was committed, those people should be held to the highest extent of the law. The reason why I bring this up is because most of the people that were attacking me and defending her are calling it a tourist visit on January 6th. I'm not saying you said that, but a lot of those people, it's a double standard.
What does that have to do with anything, though? Okay,
it has something to do with it has something to do with everything, because Savannah, hold on. Savannah, here's why, David. Savannah was pushed to the ground. She's playing victim. Okay. But yet Savannah was also the same. Savannah was the same person who called those people hostages and patriots and supported Donald Trump. She's spoken about that.
Let's say that makes her
she's a hypocrite at a minimum. At a minimum.
But that doesn't mean she's not a hypocrite.
Has anybody been arrested?
It doesn't mean she's.
Has anybody been arrested?
For this, no.
Okay.
Doesn't mean she's not a victim. We see on video she's shoved and pushed to the ground.
And we see on video her slapping someone in the face and grabbing someone by the throat. I could play that same game that you're playing.
Who did she slap in the face?
There's video of it. I posted it on my social media. Yeah, somebody had a whistle. The daughter had a whistle, which I've covered. Okay, go ahead and watch the video again.
Well, let me explain. I did. The daughter gets literally inches from her face, which is considered like you're now breaching someone's personal space. And Savannah puts her arm out to basically back the woman off.
Okay.
Because
well, I have other videos that I have watched, and I've also posted still images that show her making contact with those people as well. Let me be very clear on this, and I stand.
Is not assault.
Okay.
You keep saying making contact.
If you grab somebody by the throat, that's assault. If you put your hand
depending on the context.
Okay.
Attacking
right. Well, you know what? Well, you know what?
You're defending yourself.
Depending on the context. If you see somebody attacking members of your family, one could argue pushing somebody in the back. There's context to that. So we can both play this game. But David, here's the bottom line. David, here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line.
Yeah, sure.
Local law enforcement, according to my sources, have decided they are not pressing charges on anybody. If Trump's DOJ decides to
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, correct. If Trump's DOJ doesn't care, okay, well, now you're going to say it's liberal, so it's not a fair. Okay, I'm not playing that stupid game with you. That's a stupid game.
Well, I mean,
so if Trump's FBI and DOJ presses charges, would you say, oh, well, that's right wing, that's political? Would you say that, or it only applies to Minneapolis?
I would. Well, first of all, I probably would say it's definitely politically.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you're willing to admit that double standard. Here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Local.
That the same thing could happen with a liberal Minneapolis state. They don't want to press charges?
No. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. If that was the case, they would have already pressed charges on Savannah. So I completely disagree with you. So here's the bottom line here. Okay, here's the bottom line. Nobody has been charged with a crime. I believe law enforcement had handled it the right way. Here's the thing about Savannah that most reasonable people, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. We'll find out.
Okay.
Savannah only goes to left-wing protests. I actually had a personal conversation with her today. I said, can you provide me any evidence? Because she was actually outspoken a little bit about the Epstein stuff and the way the Trump administration handled it. I said, have you ever gone to a right-wing event, a Trump rally, or any right-wing rally, and asked people any challenging questions about the Trump administration? The answer was no. She showed me a video on, hold on.
So what,
I'm going to explain why in a moment, because here's the deal. Like Savannah and many others who I actually know, I know Cam Higbee, I know Nick Sorter, they go to these protests to try to get into altercations. Now, I'm not saying that they want to be physically harmed necessarily, but if that means that somebody gets pushed or their hat gets stolen, which we've seen, they act like they were sexually assaulted.
How do you know? You can't prove intent.
How can I prove intent?
How do you know that?
Okay, well, here's how I know with her. She didn't conduct any interviews. She said, nope, I wasn't going there to have any interviews with people. I said to her today, and I will show this. I said, then why were you there? Okay. If you're a reporter or she calls herself a journalist, you're going to conduct interviews. You're not just going to take out a cell phone and just video stuff. If you're a responsible journalist, you're going to question both sides. You're going to ask questions. She even openly admitted to me that she wasn't there to ask anybody any questions. Let me tell you why so many, not all, but so many of these people go to these events so they can get viral clicks and moments. What immediately did she do? Now, there is allegedly a story out there, allegedly, that she went back to her hotel and she called Elon Musk. Now, while I can't verify that story, here's what I will tell you what happened. She immediately posted it all, played the victim, said, has made a lot of money off this. She goes, well, here's what she does.
Is the victim.
No.
Even if what you're saying is right, and she went specifically to instigate, let's say that's true, for example, that doesn't mean she's not a victim of assault.
Okay, so I would also make the argument that there were others that were victim of assault as well. Now, we can agree to disagree on that, but we're going in circles.
Let's say that's true, but do you think she's not? Okay, I mean, I agree we're going in circles, but you're going off the point by saying she's instigating.
Here's what Savannah did.
She was still assaulted.
Here's what, let me explain to you what Savannah did. That day, she did not go to the hospital. She didn't complain of any pain. In fact, moments after she was pushed to the ground, hold on. I'm going to tell you why if you just listen to me for a moment.
Okay.
In the video, moments after she was pushed, she immediately gets up. She starts smiling at the camera. Then while she's smiling at the camera, doesn't appear to be any pain or anything like that. She's fixing her hair for the camera. Then that day, hold on. Then that entire day, she doesn't talk about any damage to her body or any pain she was in. The next day, okay, hold on. I didn't say she had to. It's an issue of credibility. Please just let me finish. The next day, I would imagine, that's okay. The next day, I would imagine after she spoke to an attorney, because this is about money, she claimed that her neck was stiff and she had headaches. Then she appeared on the Laura Ingraham show that night. She looked pretty good to me. She didn't look like she was in pain. And then the day after that, when people were criticizing her like me, saying, wait a second, why weren't you in a neck brace? I thought you said you were in all this pain and headaches. She had the time to do the Alex Jones show. She had the time to do the Laura Ingraham show. Then the next day she says, oh, I had a concussion. Here's the problem with all of this. It's just like somebody that is an offender bender that claims they have whiplash and headaches. You can't prove it. Here's what we do know. There was no blood. There was no scrapes. There was nothing on her face or her body.
There was assault.
Okay. What I am trying to do is I am trying to portray to you the behavior of somebody that has no credibility. Now, I'll go back to the beginning.
Even if that's true, I'm just still saying she was assaulted, and you're downplaying the assault when you say things like a light.
So hold on. Okay, so first of all,
to the ground.
Okay, and I am not saying that anybody on either side should have put their hands on anybody.
I'm not saying you are.
Here's what I am. Here's what I am. I am downplaying it. Yes, because she sounded like she had severe damage to her body when we know she didn't. Okay. She was pushed to the ground. In the video before then and other videos that I've received and some of the snapshots that I've shown on social media, she also made physical contact with others first. I believe that is the reason why local law enforcement has not decided to press charges. And even Savannah put on social media that local law enforcement have said there wasn't sufficient evidence that a crime was committed. So if there isn't sufficient evidence that a crime was committed, let me talk to you a little bit about the family that I interviewed yesterday. Okay. They both have lost their jobs. They both have had death threats. They have been threatened assaulting the wife and the daughter. There have been lies about the daughter saying that she was kicked off the soccer team. Not true. There are lies on social media saying that there have been arrests made. That is not true. There are lies about the daughter saying she was kicked out of her school. Not true.
Right.
So the point
The
that I'm
point of all this,
the point that I'm trying to make, David, is that there's a lot of people throwing a lot of misinformation out there. And I am a man of my word. If in fact, Chris and his wife and or his daughter are not only charged and arrested, but if they are convicted of a crime, then I'll be the first person to come on this show today and say, hey, you know what? That was my opinion then, and I was wrong. But that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, but why do you have to wait for the police to figure out whether he's guilty or not? Look, even if he doesn't,
can I ask you that? Can I ask you that? Okay, David, to your point, sorry to interrupt, but
sure.
Why do we have to wait for Donald Trump to be convicted of being a pedo? When we look at all the evidence in the Epstein files and the 30,000 times he's been named there and the accusations, David, would you apply that same thing to Donald Trump? Why do we have to wait for a conviction? Can't we just call him a pedo? Is that fair, David, going by your standard?
Well, because there's not nearly enough. I mean, if you can show me video evidence of him being a pedophile.
Gotcha. Hold on. So there's not nearly enough evidence to call Trump a pedo. So we can't do that. It has to be proven in a court of law. But yet I'm not saying you can't. You can call him whatever you want. I'm saying there's simply no merit. All right. Well, all I'm saying, David, is I think
show me evidence of him being a pedophile.
David, I appreciate the call, but going by your own standard, you're a hypocrite. We can't call Donald Trump a pedo, even though you've had multiple credible young girls at the time that have accused him of that. But we can't do that. But then in this situation, oh no, why do you have to wait, Brian, until there's a conviction? I'm consistent. Maybe you should try it sometime. Thank you for the call, David. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Man, it's been a long time since we had Herb call in. I keep telling Herb that he is a celebrity of this show, so I'm going to try to be nice to him today because a lot of people were worried about you, Herb. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. First of all,
are you okay? I'm being serious. I'm not being facetious.
I just said I'm fine.
Okay, good. Where have you been?
Okay. I wanted to ask you a question, but first of all, I want to give a shout out to David because when he calls in, this guy comes up with, he's a good caller. He's one of your best.
Thank you, David. I would say the same. Thank you about Herb. Thank you, Herb. I'd say the same thing about you.
I like him.
Thank you, Herb. I'd say the same thing about you. You're one of the best callers. Go ahead, Herb.
I lose my cool with you.
Go ahead, Herb. All right. So what did you want to talk about today? What did you want to talk about?
My question is you were talking to Carson, and in the conversation with him, I lived in California for years, and you were talking about the high-speed rail, and you were saying that the reason why it hasn't been continued is because it hasn't been, the voters they're voting it down, right? That's what you said.
There's multiple reasons why this has not happened yet.
Originally, I think the voters, we voted that in originally, but it's cost overruns over the years that have stopped that. There have been plenty of blockages, and there are multiple. I am aware that there are multiple reasons why that wasn't built. The point that I was trying to make to the person who called in is that that's not Kamala Harris's fault. In fact, she wasn't even a lawmaker in California as this still goes on. There are multiple reasons, and yes, there are a lot of reasons, and I can make complaints on both sides on why this hasn't been done. I know part of the problem is that it was poor planning.
I think someone could make that argument that it was poor planning. I do not disagree with you. There's a lot of politicians out there that poor planning, but I'm not going to blame Kamala Harris for why that. There's a lot of other pieces to the puzzle that were far larger roles. And by the way, Kamala has been vice president. She had nothing to do with that. Those are California lawmakers, on both sides of the aisle.
But originally, when it was voted in, though,
all right.
Brian, she was Attorney General.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a problem.
One more thing I wanted to say. One more thing I want to make a comment on, and I'm not going to get in an argument with you, but you keep saying Iraq didn't have any weapons of mass.
Here we go again with the gas that you try to call in and say that. Yeah, here you go again.
Okay, but you got to say they didn't find him. And I mean, they could have shipped him out.
No, you're right, Herb. You're right. Listen, I'm a billionaire. I just can't find the money in the bank. But you're absolutely correct. I agree.
Okay,
I'm a billionaire.
So, reason I said it because they use weapons. They use gases on the Kurds, and that's documented. That's
Donald Trump might have won. I agree. Donald Trump might have won the 2020 election. They just couldn't find the votes. So I agree with you, Herb. Yeah, you're right.
You're wrong.
You're right.
You're wrong. Don't have to make a joke out of it.
No. You're right. So hold on. Hold on. So
Bye-bye.
hold on. No, Herb. Why are you hanging up the phone, Herb? See, he hangs up the phone because he's such an idiot. So Herb's point in that call is there still might have been weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And the reason why he's come to that conclusion is because we just haven't found it yet. There might be $1 million of gold in my basement. I just haven't dug it up yet. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why Herb is a superstar. He might be the dumbest person I've ever spoken to in my life, but we love Herb. He's very special. Herb, I do appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Mark. Mark is next. What's up, Mark?
Hey, how's it going, Brian?
Hey.
Hey, since today's topic is nut jobs, I also want to let you bring up Jesse Lee Peterson. I saw some of that interview, and I swear to God, that guy reminds me of the characters from the movie Get Out.
Can I ask you, did you see that interview on my page or his page?
I saw it on your page.
Yeah, I want to
other of interviews.
Yeah, I want to share something with you. I agree with you. So for those of you that don't know, just hang on the call for a second, my friend. So there's a guy named Jesse Lee Peterson. I didn't know much about him. I didn't do any research on him. I learned he had a large following, so I agreed to do a show the other day. It was probably the most crazy interview I've ever done. I've done hundreds of interviews. He said everything from Martin Luther King is a zero to Donald Trump is the great white hope. Okay, long story short, it was an hour. It was probably 45 minutes of me just insulting him on his show because he is just such a moron, right? Is that a fair characterization of the interview? Is that fair?
Yeah, there's something wrong with that guy.
There's something wrong with him. So here's what I did. I posted that on YouTube. I didn't sign any contracts with them. There was no copyright. They threatened me, and they threatened me to take down that interview. Now, I immediately took it down, even though I still have a recording, and I'm going to see if they post the interview. If they don't post the interview, I'm going to repost it because I didn't sign any deal with them saying that they had the rights, only the rights to that interview. What I do is I record all my interviews. For example, I was on, who's the guy's show that I was on yesterday? Roland Martin. Thank you, Numchuck. I'm losing my mind here. I'm 46 years old. Roland Martin show. He lets me record. He lets me, simulcast. No problem. This guy, I guess he might not put that interview up because I think it made him look really bad and it was embarrassing to him. And I called him a lot of names and I think he deserved it.
He does it constantly. He does all kinds of interviews and people just mop the floor with them with the same ridiculous talking points.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know who this guy was. Imagine being a black man and saying Martin Luther King is a zero, because that's what he said. How insulting. And Donald Trump is the great white hype. And then at the end of the show, I don't know if you saw, did you see the end of the show where you did rapid fire questions? Did you see that?
I didn't see all the way through. The dude's so intolerable. It's so crazy that you have to take a break.
I agree. So at the end of the show, there was a rapid fire question thing. And I said, oh God, here we go. First question he asked me was, what's a woman? That was the first question. I said, what a wonderful question. So we'll see if they post that interview on his platforms. They might not, just because I think it makes him look really bad, but he's obviously a troll. I don't know what else to say.
One last thing I also wanted to say too before you hang up on me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
The last thing too, everybody always forgets when it comes to things Donald Trump said too. Everybody forgets in sworn deposition under the Eugene Carroll case.
Yeah,
he admitted verbatim on the record saying he could grab women by the you-know-what because he's a star. Recorded. Everybody always remembers everything else, but everyone always forgets that clip.
It's a really good point, among other things, about him, bragging about going into teenage girls' locker rooms. Thank you for the call, sir. You had to remind me about that interview. Listen, if Jesse Lee Peterson and his show do not post that interview, I'm going to repost it again, and they can sue me if they would like to, because I didn't sign anything with them, so they don't have any rights over me. It is a crazy off-the-walls interview. You'd think they'd want to post it, but it makes them look really bad. Let's go to Nelson. Nelson's next on PTL. What's up, Nelson?
Hello, Brian. How are you? I just want to talk about the little dispute, I suppose, with Trump and the Pope, and Trump, I guess, calling Pope terrible, and then posting as himself as Jesus Christ, which I think was hilarious for pretty much all the wrong reasons.
You think it's appropriate for, regardless of your sense of humor, do you think it's appropriate for the president of the United States to be doing that?
Oh, no, it's completely inappropriate. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. It was hilarious for all the wrong reasons. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's for all the wrong reasons.
Go on.
Because he's a war criminal, you know, so.
Okay.
No war criminal.
No argument there. No argument there. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I really just wanted to say that with the Pope, even though I'm not a religious fanatic, you know, and I don't agree with everything that religion says or the Bible says for that matter, I do agree with the Pope's message of peace and him pushing back against Trump, especially when Trump said the Pope was weak on crime, I believe. And
so I agree. So listen, Nelson, I agree with what you're saying. But there are right-wing evangelicals out there, some of whom are you're fans of. I think you know who I'm talking about. I'll bring up Andrew. Andrew Wilson paints his entire life through his Christianity. Do you think Andrew Wilson has criticized Donald Trump for attacking the Pope?
Well, from some of the videos that I've seen of him, I haven't watched.
Okay, so Nelson, the answer is no.
No, I was going to answer.
Okay, fair enough. So the answer is no.
I was actually going to say no. I haven't really seen him criticizing
Nelson.
Trump,
2 words.
You know?
2 words. Fake Christian. Andrew Wilson is a fake Christian piece of human scum. Nelson, I got to go, brother. Thank you for the phone call. Nelson's a fan of that guy. Got to call him out. Let's go to Eric. Eric is next on PTL. Hello, Eric.
You know, Brian, all these haters talking about your interview with Chris yesterday, I think it's just unfounded. And all these people talking smack, what you should do is send them a picture of you with some girls in bikinis to show them how secure you are.
Yeah, sure. Eric, hang on the line. Don't hang up. Don't hang up, Eric. No, don't hang up on him. Eric, I know you just said a word on the air that you probably shouldn't say. Is Eric still there? Oh, Eric hung up the phone. God, how pathetic these people are. I wasn't going to hang up on him. By the way, Eric, let me be very clear on this, okay? I love the hate I get on social media because people like you who obsess with me, who look at pictures of me with attractive women, which clearly is not something you're familiar with. I love people like you, Eric, because without people like Eric, I don't get the engagement. And if I wasn't getting Trump mushroom gobblers like Eric upset to the point where he has to use his little Trump fingers and call in and then try to insult me, which is really weird because it's not really insulting to make fun of me for being in a hot tub with attractive women. That's a check. Would you agree? That's a strange insult. A Trump mushroom gobbler just called into the show making fun of me for being in a hot tub with some extremely attractive women. Very strange insult. But I want you to think about how much I get to these people and how much I upset them. A Trump fan who's obviously obsessed with me, who helps my engagement, which I appreciate. He's probably one of those haters on social media, which I love. I laugh at all of you. Decided he's so jealous and upset at me hanging out with attractive women that he actually called into the show, used a homophobic slur, which I believe he did use. So he's making fun of me for hanging out with attractive women while calling me a homophobic slur. I want you to think about the irony in that. By the way, there's nothing wrong. But he's making fun of me claiming I'm a homosexual while I'm hanging out with attractive women. Eric, that was really a great insult, my man. That phone call went very well for you. And by the way, I wasn't going to hang up on you. I was going to keep you on the line. You just proved to be the coward. But I'm glad I'm living in your head rent-free. And I'm glad that my behavior and the things that I enjoy doing, which is on occasionally hanging out with attractive women, bothers you so much that you decided to call into the show and you're so upset about it. Thanks for calling in, Eric. I appreciate you and I appreciate your engagement. We got another YouTube super chat. Who is it from?
From MJ.
What did MJ say?
Happy birthday, Brian, from a fellow, whatever it is.
It is my birthday
It
this
is.
week. Yeah, it's my birthday. It's my birthday. So I did turn 46. So if anybody wants to make some YouTube super chats or some donations, now's the perfect time to do it. What a great segue. Pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website, if you want to make some donations, they could be birthday donations, whatever the case may be. Pushingthelimits.live, where you can make a small donation. There it is on the bottom of the screen. Maybe a birthday donation if you appreciate what I do. Or maybe somebody like Eric who wants to donate to my show and live vicariously through me with attractive women in hot tubs. I don't know. Anyway, there's the website. Tomorrow on the show, one of my favorite comedians in the world. He also is a Trump hater like me. The very popular Steve Hofstetter will be joining us on the program tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss it. I love all you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a great day.